All right, welcome back to another episode of the Aircraft Broker Academy podcast. Today's guest is Vlad Nazarov. He's a student in the academy and the Aircraft Broker Academy, and also he owns and manages Nanoflow Technologies. So today I brought him in, and we're just going to talk a little bit about his experience in aviation, how he even became an aircraft broker, and just learn a little bit more about him. And hopefully, some of his stories inspires you to also pursue entrepreneurship in the aviation industry. Vlad,
Yeah,
welcome, man.
thank you. I'm in disbelief being here in front of you and just finally putting a face in person and being through the course, talking with you, emailing you, and everything. It's been really incredible, and you've really helped fulfill the empty gaps that I had on the course of becoming more experienced in the aviation industry.
Awesome, man. No, that's nice to hear, man. But Vlad, yeah, just tell me about how did you get into the aviation industry?
Well,
What is the journey there?
so I started liking aviation in middle school with RC cars. That's how
Okay.
it started. So, on one of my birthdays, a family friend gave me this gift of not just like a RC car from Target or something, but it was an RC car from a hobby store, and it had more intricate stuff that you can change, fix, gears, motors you can upgrade, tires you can
Hmm.
replace. So, and it actually had some speed to it too. It had real suspension, so it's like a nice little. It was a hobby RC car, and I used it, learned a lot from it. That's what got a lot of the interest in mechanics for me and operating something. I think it's really cool to operate
Sure.
something. And then that same hobby store, I would go in and out, and that hobby store also sold helicopters. And I thought that would be really cool, kind of the next step. Now it's instead of 2 dimensional, it's going to be 3 dimensional. So I got on a helicopter, started kind of flying them, and they're not just like air hogs or like a Target, purchase where these ones actually have collective. They have cyclic controls, so you can actually operate this thing.
Is that like in the remote?
Yeah, then the remote, and then the actual mechanism in the
Huh.
little helicopter, and they were really neat too. And then I got a simulator with you plug in the same remote control to the computer as you use it for the helicopter into the simulator. And I could also start learning how to fly planes.
And what year was this?
This was, let's see, middle school. So I was probably 13, 14 years
Okay.
old.
Wow.
Yep.
Nice.
And that's what really started growing my passion was being able to fly something 3 dimensional and operate it, build it, and work with it. And then I started buying the airplanes from that hobby store. And obviously, thanks to my incredibly supportive parents of helping me fund this hobby time to time here and there.
Yeah.
And I would be respectful to try to not crash them and, and service them and make the most out of it. And I would fly these airplanes at a local RC park. And you have to have.
Can I ask you
Mhm.
something? Were they gas or were they like?
It did get up to where they were gas. Yeah, I
Okay.
eventually worked my way to gas, nitro, and then gasoline. And I built some of the nitro engines, disassembled them. Some were 2 strokes, some were 4 strokes, and uh, built some of the nitro ones, built some of the electric ones. Learned a lot about what it takes to make an airplane fly. It actually doesn't take much.
No.
Just it doesn't even take an airplane foil to fly. All you have to have is the right center of gravity and some thrust, and that's really it. And that's all it takes. Um, so learning about that, and then at the RC park, I thought, okay, well, I've learned how to fly these airplanes, so I have some skills. So maybe I can start helping other people get into this hobby. So you could become a flight instructor at this RC field. So that's what I did. I
Are you
became I
serious?
became a flight instructor. I was like the youngest one there. Yeah. I was teaching students that were older than me.
So so I'm assuming like you charge for your service,
Oh no, it's
right?
volunteer.
Oh,
It's
it's a volunteer
That's
thing.
part of
Okay.
the park. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
that's part of
Got
the
it. Got
park.
it.
And that's what I did, and I was really excited. And I moved into more of the aerobatic style competition, 3D flying, kind of like the extras airplanes.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
you could do all kinds of snap rolls, hovers, J turns, hammerheads. I mean, flat spins, everything with these little airplanes. And yeah, I got into some of the gasoline ones, and yeah, continue to maintain and build them. And then I'm like, okay, well, then I started getting to high school and start thinking about it. And then I found out of something called Aviation High School, and
Yes.
uh, and I happened to be in the area that it's that there is one. So there's one in New York I've heard of a little bit. And I don't know too much info about that one, but the one that I went to was in Seattle, Washington. It's
Okay.
now been renamed to Raisbeck Aviation High School because James Raisbeck, if you know, he did a lot of modifications to STCs to King Airs, Learjets, for lockers, propellers,
Oh,
additional
look at that.
baggage space. He was one of the first people that created the bulletproof door for the airlines before 9/11. So he's now recently passed away, but he's left an incredible legacy and modifications for aircraft and donations, obviously, to the school. In fact, the school is public. So if there's any young viewers listening to this, or you have kids that are interested in aviation, I definitely recommend looking into Aviation High School.
Yeah, and I'm gonna pause you there because that's. I mean, I'm originally from Spain.
Hmm.
Okay, I did my senior year here in Naples, Florida, and the high school that I went to is called Laley High School, and they have an aviation program
Perfect.
attached to it, and that's kind of like what also made me get into getting my first lesson
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So absolutely.
Yeah. So the thing is with this school, it is public, but it had more private donors than public funding, which led to some controversy too a little bit. There's other controversy about the school, but I won't get into too much of the
Sure.
politics about it. But unfortunately now, for me, I got it lucky. We had the brand new building to go with it. We're right next to an airport, and we had all the amazing teachers to go with it too. And it's STEM oriented, so science,
Yeah.
technology,
Right.
engineering, and math, under the theme of aviation. And the theme projects that you have there, honestly, I took more away from high school than I did from college, from this school specifically.
Wow. That's
Uh,
something.
yeah, in terms of professionalism, presentation skills, problem solving skills, and just overall being prepared for the industry, more from high school than college, definitely.
Interesting.
So when you have projects there, you don't present it to your teachers, you don't present it to your colleagues, you don't present it to your friends, you present it to people in the actual industry. So there's no BSing your way through. You gotta know what you're talking about because they are in the industry, who's technically kind of grading you there. So it definitely took a lot from that high school, but unfortunately now there's what is it, I was a student outside of the district.
Okay.
We've had people move their whole families from different countries even just so that their kid could go to this school. Different states was
So
very
it's a big
common.
deal.
It's a huge deal. 100 people per grade and like 98, 99% graduation rate. So everyone's there like minded. Getting a group project was never a problem. Honestly, 80%, you could count on anybody working with you as a team on a group project. Which, I mean, I don't know how, if you could say that for a public, normal, traditional public
Right.
school. Also, no bullying either. Yeah, everyone's there to learn. Everyone's there to pick up everything that's offered there. Internships. I had a Boeing internship in high school because of this school. Um, like, I mean, what other high school can provide you that? I don't know. I mean, not a lot.
No, not at all. I don't.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Ground school was offered by a real flight instructor, so you can get class
Yeah.
credits and ground school covered and signed off. And so that's what I did. And that's how I started. Also, I was still in the RC hobby, but this is where the transition started to full scale. Okay, I could take some flight lessons at a slight discount on the monthly membership at the flight school right across the runway from us. So that's what I would start doing. I soloed in high school already through the flight lessons that they had
And
across the
and you
airport.
were like 17, 18,
Yeah, I was. I
around
think I was
around there.
17. I
Okay.
soloed at 17. Started driving, and
Cool.
then started learning how to fly pretty much immediately after. And while I started driving, this is how this whole story ties together. Is I wanted to thank my parents for letting me, drive the car, and I would start cleaning it. And I would make sure it would be always clean. And I would bring it back better than it was given to me. And
Very thoughtful of you, man.
I thought, well, maybe I could take this further. What's the next step? And maybe I can make a business out of this, or start doing neighbors' cars. So that's what I started doing. I did a couple neighbors' cars. I then there was like a winter storm, and then I had still one of my RC airplanes, and I put the camera on there with the live video feed way before DJI was even a thing. Way before the Phantoms were
Sure.
out. Like this was analog signal, and static and everything. So it's all total manual control. There's no GPS return to home. And I took off, and everything's kind of white and black, and I quickly kind of got disorientated, and I lost the plane. I was very thorough. I tried to draw a perimeter of where to find it, and I never found it. I searched everywhere. It was a very wooded area that I was living in, and I never found it. But then in high school, like a year, 2 years later, after this, I'm already like 17,
Okay.
and some guy messages me on Instagram like, "I found your airplane." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" There was zero context, right? And he's like, "Yeah, that white one. It was a fun cub that I had." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, wait, that's the one that crashed. What? How did? How, what's
Yeah.
going? How did he get to it?" And so he's like, "Yeah, there was a windstorm. It came down a tree. You can come get it." And they salvaged all of the electronics. They were still good. The GoPro was still good. It was without a case. It was like one of the original GoPros. And I was like, "Wow, how can I thank you?" And so at the time, um, it's funny enough, I actually crashed into a very wealthy neighborhood,
Okay.
one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in that zip code. And his dad had a brand new like Tesla Model S right before these were like a thing. This were one of the initial owners. And the way that his kid figured out that it was my plane, he pulled the SD card out, recognized my face because we went to the same elementary school, and he contacted me through Instagram. And so at the time, I'm like, wow, I lost everything. I lost my whole project that I put a lot into. I
Sure.
soldered wires together, and I lost it all. And then, well, here's this opportunity presented. He gave me a lot of the parts back, and I'm like, how can I thank you? Well, um, I offered, well, maybe I can detail your Tesla. That's something I could do because I just getting into it. And, here's my opportunity to take up on it. And he said, "Yeah, sure." So I detailed it for him. And then from thereafter, I would detail his Tesla since he was also close to where I lived. Every month, he would get his car detailed by me up until COVID. And that's
That's a
that's
long time.
that's how I started NanoFlow, my business with detailing. And then I officially started when I was 20. Yeah, when I was 20 years old. That's when I officially opened up NanoFlow because
Like the
the
LLC and all that
LLC,
stuff.
yep,
Okay.
because I got an insurance check under to NanoFlow for the Tesla because he got hit, and then I had to do some buffing, for him after the repair work was done and redo some parts. And then I'm like, oh, okay, well, I got to make a bank account because they won't accept the check under NanoFlow because NanoFlow doesn't exist.
Right.
So that's when I really started, and then I would detail stuff here and there, and I thought, okay, well, why don't I tie the aviation passion and experience and the detailing for cars together?
Let me ask you this. So when you started NanoFlow,
Hmm.
and then when you made this decision to also incorporate airplanes into this, were you already certified as a pilot?
I think I
Oh,
just started soloing, just started flight
okay.
training, so it's
Okay.
just getting into it. But it took time to get in aviation, and then when I tried to tie aviation and cars together, I ended up doing boats.
Okay. So how did that happen?
A boat was presented to me, like one of the car clients was sent over to another boat client, and then I'm like, sure, I figured paint is paint, you know, cleaning is cleaning. It's just a different type of vessel, a different type of vehicle. That's really it. And I did it, and it really took off from there. I did a lot of boats.
So it's been a while. But I did try to start a business like detailing airplanes. And I remember one big thing I looked into was the insurance.
Yeah, yeah.
Can
So
you talk to me about
yeah.
how did you manage getting an insurance?
Oh.
Because I remember it's a lot of money. And this
Mhm,
was like uh, probably 2016,
mhm.
2017, around there when I tried to do it. How did you manage that?
Yeah, that was a hurdle as well. So it came to a point where I had to get a badge for an airport, and in order to get the badge or to work at an FBO, they presented to me $5 million of commercial general liability, and then hangar keeper insurance to go with it, and then the aviation liability. So there were like three parts to this whole policy, and me being like 21, 22, trying to get a $5 million aviation policy, um, was not easy. And I did get some quotes for it, but I also took some courses for aviation detailing. So I will give a shout out to one course that was very well put together. It's Brett Barry's Shiny Jets course.
Okay.
And any course you take that pays for itself is a well made course. That means you've benefited more from it because you've made even more money because you've taken the course or you've done it.
Absolutely.
And I've done it, and it helped me walk through a lot. Some of the stuff I already knew, of course, because I was already detailing, but it really enhanced other things to maybe do faster or do better, and also to figure out just legitimizing my business even more. And yeah, insurance. So
Yeah, I'll ask you for the link
they,
when we're done,
yeah,
so because I'm gonna put it in the
yeah,
description.
it was the quote for the 5 million was like, I want to say it was either 13 or $18,000. So it was five figures, and it's a lump sum. So they demand it all up front, unless you want to do financing. But the financing was ridiculous. It was like outrageous. It wasn't worth doing it month to month.
Okay.
And I mean, I had a kind of a choice. Either do I continue flight training, paying for that, having money for that, or do I just kind of dump really everything that I have at the time to put this aviation detailing insurance so I can write the check for it? And I made the decision to write the check because
Very good.
I was able to take on a new client. I was able to take on a Challenger jet that I could wash. I could not wash this jet unless I had that insurance. I had it, and it was through networking that I got this client. And it's really not that hard to be better than most people and in whatever you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And like the last people that were detailing that plane, I think they left tape on the NACA ducts. So they were, the operators of that airplane were looking to find new detailers. And I just presented myself at the right time.
Yeah, but let me ask you this: you were 21, correct?
About 21, 22
22.
for this. Yeah.
Um, what did you say to these clients in order for them to like take you on?
I just say I do detailing. I do aircraft detailing. I do all the services go with the airplane. I'm very thorough. My process is a little bit different. I'm not the brown bear for washing airplanes. My process is different in the sense that I'm thinking about how to preserve the paint more and how to preserve the aircraft more. I'm not using bristle brushes, which is also what I learned from the course as well. Is I'm not using anything abrasive. I'm using a technique that is the least amount of abrasion, doesn't make the hanger all wet from the wet wash, because wet washing also has a down con of leaving water spots behind. You can't dry the whole airplane in one go. And then you make a mess. So if you're doing it inside, and if you're outside, you're going to risk water spotting. And then you're also going to risk putting water in places where maybe it shouldn't go.
Sure.
And then a dry wash is usually what's usually, oh, you want a wet wash or dry wash? The dry wash is the alternative. Well, dry wash isn't as lubricating enough. You're going to go through a lot more towels. You're going to not pick up the dirt as nicely as you should be, and you're going to be braiding the surface as you go, because it's very dry. So there's science to this too. And then the best, in my opinion, is doing a rinseless. So it's the best of both worlds. Best of dry wash because you're using minimal water, but it's the best of a wet wash because you're still pretty much splashing, or you're spraying the whole surface with the rinseless solution. You're spraying it as if it's a garden hose, but just not in obscene amounts of water. You're
Got
just
it.
spraying with a pump sprayer. And I sold myself to that. I said, well, this is the best way to wash it. I can do it inside a hanger. You don't have to pull it out. And I'm preserving your paint for longer life. And on top of that, I also started getting into ceramic coatings, which are essentially a permanent wax solution. So once it's installed, it doesn't have to be reapplied for a while, for many years. It's kind of like adding another layer of clear to your paint. And it's incredibly hydrophobic. So all the water just bounces off. And that was kind of my niche for the boats, the planes, and the cars. And I still do that. And so I continued working on this Challenger. I would wash it every month. And in fact, if you're looking into getting aviation detailing, it's a great, rewarding career, and getting, paying for your flight training too, because instead of, so what is it? Do you know what a pilot rate for a Challenger mid-size jet would be for
Like
pilot, co-pilot?
for like flying.
Yeah, for crew, like contract rates
Uh,
for mid-size
probably
jets.
like 2,500
Okay,
for
yeah,
day rate.
day rate 2,500. Okay, yeah, it was a little higher now, I guess. So okay, or so, but in order to get there, you need to have thousands of hours.
Yeah.
Or when I was charging this Challenger to wash it in 5 hours, that's what it takes. It takes 5 man hours to wash it. I was charging them $1,300 to wash their airplane to do so. So it was kind of like, I can get paid $1,300 day rate for flying a jet, maybe smaller jets,
Sure.
or I can get paid $1,300 in 5 hours, come home the same night, wash it, and be done, and then pay for my additional flight hours that way.
That is incredible, man. How did you come up with that rate? It was that from the course
It was
or
from the
it
course.
was from the okay.
Yeah, he gives you now he has an app. So you buy it's a membership app you pay for, and you plug in like the wingspan, or you plug in probably now the model of the airplane, and it spits you out the prices for all the services, bright work, and it's catered specifically to that airplane because some airplanes have more bright work than others. Some airplanes have boots. Some airplanes have
Right.
bigger wings. So price of a wash, wax, or coating, boots, bright work, interiors, all that stuff. And so I'd wash this Challenger every month. And then I decided to pitch him the most entry level spray on coating, which is like 6 months durability. It's just super diluted coating. And they would only wash it after that. They would only wash it every 4 months. That's how much cleaner it stayed longer. So that's a testimony to coatings that the airplane stays cleaner longer, less maintenance, and they save money that way. I shot myself in the foot because now I'm making less money, but but yeah. And yeah, I started still doing boats there with the coatings and stuff, continuing playing for flight training. And then as after I got my pilot's license, I thought, okay, I want to start renting and building time. And I was through the same flight school.
And when you say pilot, was that commercial or private?
Private. Yeah.
Okay, private.
Private to
Got
build
it.
time because you got to get to 250 hours to get
Sure.
commercial. And
Oh, so you already had your instrument rating as well?
no. Well, eventually, yes. But I started building time. I actually got my instrument quite a while later. But
Okay.
build time with renting. And then the only things really available at a flight school, as probably a lot of you know, is anything that's not a 172. So anything a little bit more premium is going to be more available because all the students are not going to be flying it
Yeah.
to get your training. So, well, there's a 182 and a 206 more available at that flight school that I was going to. Okay, I'll get checked out in it, I'll get the experience so I could start building time and then also start flying friends and, take advantage of my private pilot license. So did a bit of that, got experience. And eventually, at one point, that 206 that I rented was no longer on the schedule. And I was using it for, after I built the 250 hours, I got a opportunity that I came across that I thought would be really cool. Again, how can I, use my skills to benefits others, or how can I use my skills and not just for nothing? And so there's an organization called Angel Flight Quest, and I thought that would be really cool. And at the time, I was dating my now wife, who's a nurse, and I thought, oh man, this is perfect. I'm gonna have her on board.
She can take care of it.
She's gonna take care of the passengers, and then I'm gonna just do the flying, and this is perfect. And it's flying non-critical people to their treatment, so it might be cancer or illnesses that it makes it much more difficult for them to travel by ground or airlines. Maybe they're immune compromised, so traveling commercially is a problem for them. And then traveling by ground is a hardship because maybe coming from Montana to Washington is a long trek. So Angel Flight is the perfect solution for these people that need this fulfilled for them, for the transportation need, and also back home. And so I was doing a couple of these missions, and it was great. My wife was loving it too. It's very rewarding. It's better than just building time for fun. You're actually now I'm building time for a purpose, or at least putting some skills to use towards others' needs. And then the 206 all of a sudden wasn't on the flight schedule anymore. And I'm like, oh man, this airplane gives me all the payload. This airplane gets me the good speed, and passenger count that I can bring with me. And I thought, okay, well, I called the front desk and they're like, well, we're just renegotiating with the leaseback owner on renting it. And I think, okay, well, I'll give it a week or two. Still not on the schedule. And then, okay, I think realize that the owner's probably not happy about something's going on, and I still want to fly the plane. So maybe I can, call him and, hey, maybe I can still borrow the plane. So the way I find out is I look up the registration on the airplane, find the address, name, and the phone number associated with it. So I give a call and he answers right away. And I say, hey, my name is Vlad. I've been using your airplane a lot. I've used it for a lot of Angel flights, and I noticed that it's been off the schedule, kind of what's going on and how can I help you? And he kind of explains a little bit of the situation. He's been, it wasn't really working out for him at the flight school in terms of the finances and the maintenance that was going with the airplane.
Okay.
It just wasn't
Like
in his favor.
the numbers weren't making sense.
The numbers and the management wasn't working out. There were definitely issues with that. And I said, okay, well, let's meet up. and we do meet up, and I present him. I talk
Can I
about
ask you
myself.
something? When you told him to meet up, did you already have a plan established? Like
A little, yes.
what you were gonna tell
Yeah,
him and what? Okay,
I'm gonna sell myself to manage his airplane. That's what I'm gonna do because I can sense that he's in a situation he doesn't know what to do. He's helpless and he doesn't know what to do in the sense of owning this airplane. Is the sense that I got.
that's the sense that you get.
And me being a private pilot and knowing, okay, I know an airplane needs an annual. I know an airplane needs a VOR check. I know an airplane needs an oil change and all these things that go with it. I maybe I can just take some of this worry and hardship off of him, so he just worries about his own stuff that he needs to do, and I just deal with all the airplane involvement of ownership
Was
for him.
that aircraft management? Was that? Did you already know about that? Did you already know people did that?
Yeah, it's something I wanted to
Okay,
get into
okay,
eventually. Like,
got it.
yeah, I want to run my own maybe 135 operation one day. I'd love to do that, and that involves managing airplanes.
Exactly.
And okay, I'm thinking next steps. Okay, manage. I have an opportunity before myself to manage this airplane. I'm gonna try to sell myself to do it. And already, like, I had another Police C12 client that I was washing, and he was also the pilot for that and manager for it. He would help mentor me a little bit of what it takes to manage an airplane. Now, while I didn't manage the PC-12, I would still take care of it, but I saw what goes behind the scenes of what it takes to manage as a pilot that airplane. What it to get it ready before flight, to get fuel ordered, to get be in compliance for all the regulations, to update the Garmin.
Hmm.
That's actually a bigger pain than a lot of people realize.
Is it
And
really? I
apparent,
never done
I
it.
mean, some people just don't want to do it, and I've done it, and I've helped this guy that was running this PC-12 do it. I mean, even he was struggling with it, and I thought, okay, well, maybe I can help him. Maybe I can manage the airplane for him. but he walked me through what it takes to manage it. So, and then yeah, this 206 is presented before me. I have this PC-12 mentor who's been helping me walk me through it. In fact, this 206 owner was skeptical of this. I don't know. I was 24, yeah, at the time. What is this 24-year-old gonna manage my airplane for me? And he's like, he's older than me, far older than I am. Um, but I had to sell myself, and the PC-12 owner actually vouched for me, and he
Okay.
called, and then the 206 owner was far more reassured that I would be providing the best service for him, and nothing would I wouldn't be taking advantage of him like he was. So that's his big concern.
How did you come up with a rate? Was that through your mentor?
Yeah, a little bit that, and I also called the Cirrus Flight School that was there, and because they manage airplanes too for their clients, and I asked them, well, what's a fair single, because they're a single piston airplane, and that's 206 is in the same category of Cirruses because people who buy Cirruses buy 206s or vice versa. Um, and I thought maybe they might know a good monthly subscription rate to manage this airplane. Update the Garmin, figure out maintenance, forecast, expenses, and plan ahead for the best ownership experience for them. And he came with the number just was that what I was thinking. He's like, well, somewhere between 500 to 1,000 a month, and I thought 700 to 750 in my head. So I'm like, okay, perfect. So that reassures that I'm not crazy for asking maybe 700 a month to manage a 206, a single engine piston, really. And he agreed. I sold myself. He agreed to the 700 a month to manage this airplane. And some months are more work than others, but other months it's just a Garmin update for sure. And then the owner starts talking about what kind of next airplane to buy. And because I've been experienced in the industry with the clients that I've serviced with washing their airplanes, I've had wonderful opportunities to go flying with them. I've had an opportunity to go fly in a TBM. I've had an opportunity to go fly in a jet prop. I've had opportunities to go fly even in citations. It's phenomenal how just helping other people, they want to do something, maybe the same for you too.
Sure.
And having that experience, it might be only one flight, but that's enough to have an opinion about it.
Mhm.
That's enough to maybe tell someone else, oh, this cockpit's pretty crammed, when another airplane of the equivalent is a lot better. Maybe that's better. So this 206 owner, he's not well versed in the different types of airplanes. He's never been in a jet prop. He's never been in a jet. He's never been in a turboprop. So he doesn't know anything. And at least I come in there and I say I have an opinion because I've been in these airplanes. And I told him, well, I understand you're interested in a Malibu or a Matrix, or what is it, the Meridian.
Yeah, those are nice
And
too.
I said, they're great airplanes. I've been in one, but maybe you might not regret buying something a little bit bigger, being a TBM. And that's the direction he went. He started looking at TBMs, and I'm already thinking, okay, he's going to probably need to sell his 206. So I should start thinking about the next steps for that. And I managed this airplane for several months. And then during this time, I'm starting to Google search, like, okay, aircraft brokering, how to do so, how to YouTube videos. And honestly, I didn't really find much. There was really no courses out there except for yours. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to be ready before this client's ready to pull the trigger. I want to have my ducks in a row and have it seem like I know it,
Yeah,
even
yeah,
though I've never done
absolutely.
it. And I'm like, okay, I've done a detailing training course before. That's helped me. It's paid for itself. Well, if I close this airplane deal, it's going to pay for itself if I take this course. So I'm going to take the chance and get the course, start learning about the whole process, how to present it to this guy, and and begin that whole deal. And I first, pointed him towards the direction of buying the next airplane before he's selling this one. So I thought, okay, yeah, yeah, go get the TBM, go start looking for one. While I didn't help him with the acquisition, he wanted to have the control and kind of over that, and that's fine. But
Sure.
I tried to sell myself, and that's okay. So he took control over that and bought one overseas, imported it. And during this time, he's like, okay, yeah, I want someone to help sell the 206.
Because what? Because he realized how much of a hassle it is, the whole process.
I think so, and I think his time is better worth doing other
Yeah,
stuff than
exactly.
and the headache of dealing with it. I don't think he wants to. So he'd rather just have it done. And plus, I've been already helpful this whole time for him, and I think he sees the value of me helping him sell this airplane. So I got the course, and I'm like saying, okay, here's the next steps. Here's what it takes. Here's what I need to do. Okay, I already have an LLC. Okay, so I can skip that part,
Sure.
which is great. Which I saw if you're just starting an LLC, that the resources in there are wonderful and will get you very far. But it's expensive. Like, okay, to get your LLC, that's 200
Hmm.
bucks right there. To get insurance, if that's another, I don't know, who knows how much, depending on your situation.
Exactly.
And then to get the if your state applies with need for dealer license, there's another fee for that.
Yeah,
And then you got
and
to
a
get
bond.
and a bond, which I have, yeah, and you got to get bonded. But some states like, oh, if you sell more than 2 airplanes a year, which is in the case
Can
of
I ask you
Washington,
something with your bond? How did you go about it?
I contacted the same insurance broker that I've been working with.
And he helped you with
Yeah,
that?
which was like Harp New Insurance.
Okay.
They helped me through this whole process and got the bond. And it was only $250 for me. And it's for Washington, they require twenty
And
five
is that
thousand
a
dollars.
yeah, 25,000,
Mm-hmm.
but is it 250 per year, correct?
Correct, every year.
Got it.
Yep, every year. And they walked me through that, and then you have to get that.
Give
And
me
then,
let's pause here because I just want to make sure, like, if there's someone else in Washington that wants to become an aircraft
yeah,
broker, you do need to get an aircraft dealer license through the state. I believe the application is $75.
yep,
And then
$10 fee on top of that.
yep. And then apart from that, you also need to apply for a bond.
Mm-hmm.
And it's $25,000 in Washington state.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like, you don't need to put the 25,000 like
Yeah.
right up front.
Yeah.
Like, you can get, there's different solutions. I know Jet Surety, it's
Mhm.
another solution that you can use, and I think it's the same thing, 250 bucks
Yeah, it's
a
250
year.
bucks. Yeah,
All right.
which was great. And let's see, got that. And for Washington specifically, if you sell more than 2 airplanes a year, you need to submit. So if you sell one, you're technically not in violation. So
Okay.
you could start. So for now, back then, I still got the bond going. At least I got the process. I have an LLC, so I still at least got the process rolling on that. But I could still sell it without technically having the license, I guess you could say.
Sure.
So that makes, if you're starting out, makes it a lot easier to do so. But it still ain't easy. So got that. Okay, and I thought, I had some real estate friends because they're in the business of sales and marketing.
Mhm.
And one thing I definitely took away from this was a house that has better pictures, and it might be worse than another house that is better but has worse pictures. The house with the better pictures will sell more because here's why. Not because it looks better and it's more appealing on the phone or computer when you're browsing through, but because people share it with their friends and family and like, oh, look at the house that I'm buying. And it's
Absolutely.
you kind of have to play with people's egos a little bit, and and into their favor in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing, it's because selling something so expensive is an emotional experience. It's a roller coaster, and you have to, as a broker, you have to enhance that experience and make it as best of an experience possible for them. So I thought, okay, immediately, all right, I'm gonna have the best pictures possible for this airplane. I'm gonna fork
Okay.
out the money. I'm gonna fork out the money to make a video for it, and because I had
How much did you pay?
paid back then for the 206, I paid 1,500
Yeah.
to get the photos and videos done.
Yeah.
And it was a great friend from my local church who does phenomenal videos.
And by the way, it was really good.
He's incredible at what he does. Yeah. So
And even your presentation skills, when I watched it, I was like,
it was my first time trying. I don't know.
no,
I mean,
it was really good.
oh, thanks. Yeah.
I would say it was better than mine too.
I was inspired because you were doing them. I'm like, okay, well, I want to do these too, and no one else is doing them.
No, I know.
Nobody else. Yeah.
And that's what makes you different.
Yeah.
And also with the pictures, another thing to add to it is in your website, you can also add your listings,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to have nice pictures because people, when they go and they research your company and for potentially hiring you to use your broker services, they're going to look at all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, even though you can look at it like I'm investing $1,500 right now and that's it. No, those $1,500 will keep having a future benefit.
Exactly.
Like the videos that you put,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be there in the internet.
Yeah.
People are going to be able to see it. So it has a value that just continues on. And that's how I try to also justify, that much money.
Yeah, that's a portfolio.
It's a
growing.
portfolio, exactly.
And yes, can you sell an airplane without all the fancy pictures? That's pretty much how everyone does. Everyone sells with terrible pictures.
Mhm.
In fact, most people recycle old listing photos on their new stuff. That's why you see all the thumbnails for the listings so that they don't have that problem where their photos are recycled for the next agent. And I thought, okay, well, when it came to detailing, I wanted to be better than most people at it. And it really doesn't take that much more effort to be better than most people at what they do. It just takes a little bit less laziness,
Mhm.
and it takes a little bit more initiative and just the passion and desire to do things right, and having the integrity and the energy to just do it a little bit more, And
that's what sets you apart.
Yeah.
Just like in the detailing, like it can set you apart in aircraft sales.
it applies. Yeah. The skills of sales applies to all aspects of life. The skills of negotiation affects all aspects of your life.
Mhm.
Between relationships with people, between selling something, between buying something, everything's a negotiation. Okay, so start selling this 206, doing the course, and then also I present it to him, and I also told him, look, this airplane's got to be polished because we got to make this airplane a little bit more presentable to sell. And well, because I have a detailing company.
Wow. And you're going like the extra step with that too.
and well, because I have a detailing company, let's make this right. Let's make this listing whole, and a complete airplane for the next buyer. And, do you know why we like shiny things like gold, diamonds? Why is the shiny thing so desirable?
I'm sure there's something in our brain
There is, yes.
What is it? Because I have no idea.
It falls back on the survival instinct of water, because water is reflective, water is shiny, and when we see something that mimics that, we automatically think in our brain, oh, we need that. That's why we make cars as shiny as possible. That's why we try to, make things look very clean and shiny and glossy. That's why, because it touches that part of the brain where we need it, what we think.
Wow.
So that's part of the reason why, I told them is like, look, we got to polish it because we got to have it more desirable than other listings out there to make it more appealing than other listings out there. Yeah, because first impressions are everything. When they come and look at the airplane and see it, all oxidized, they're going to, oof, no thanks. That, because first impressions are everything.
And you have the right mindset about it, man. Jeez. Okay. So, did you already have, so before you joined the Aircraft Broker Academy, did you have the agreements in place or did you use the templates
I did use the templates in there, which are very close to the AOPA, pretty much standard aircraft purchase agreements. But I also had a listing agreement.
Yeah, was the listing agreement that you use it from the templates?
Yeah, I use it from the templates. The management agreement, I actually had a lawyer write that up for me. I paid the premium for it. So that
What was it,
different.
like $2,000 or something?
I think it was 500 actually. So it
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
so bad. So I got it within, pretty much recouped my money after a month, and I can use it for another airplane
Yeah.
for future management for the most part. So yeah, I sent the listing agreement. He didn't want to budge on broker fees. He didn't want to pay even 3% to sell this airplane. And if you compare it to housing, it's usually 3% aside, and this is pretty much the price of a house. A 2008 Cessna 206 is $500,000,
Right.
over half a million.
Yeah.
The price of a home, price of a median home, I guess, roughly of a median home in the U.S. And brokers usually make 3% aside. So I figured, okay, this is a good starting point. Usually it's 6%, right, for single engine pistons, because I'm going off of your broker academy guidelines. But this guy is like, no, I thought the management will cover the sale. And I'm like,
Yeah,
no.
This is a lot more
It
involved.
was way more than the $700 a month involved. And little did I know it was actually even more involved.
Right.
So I said, okay, maybe I can incentivize this. I'm going to include the polish into this broker fee, but I'm going to have more upfront, more of a non-refundable deposit earnest fee upfront. So he agreed. I gave him like 3
Can
options.
I ask you something about that? Because when I started as an aircraft broker, I didn't know anything about earnest fee. Usually, if I'm selling the airplane, I don't charge the earnest fee. It just depends.
Case by case.
But acquisitions for sure, I'm
Yeah.
charging like an upfront fee. Did you know about that before you joined the course, or is that something that was presented to you in the course?
For the earnest fee upfront?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the course you mentioned you've done both. Initially you started without a fee, and then later, just to have some of your costs covered for listing,
Mm-hmm.
to do an earnest fee that you do now.
Exactly.
So I kind of wanted to give the owner all options
Okay.
based on that. And I gave him 3 options. I said, one option, 3% total, no upfront fee, and I think no polish included,
Okay.
or something, or maybe polish included. It's been a while. It's been several months. And then another one was 2%, but 2,500 upfront, but it does include the polish. And then the third option was something else, something similar, a combination of those things. So I thought, well, I'm going to try to hit on his psychology, because if you ever read a book about what is money, or what is it, the book about money, we'll put in the link somewhere, or,
Sure.
or somewhere, the title of it. But it talks about that people are more willing to do things when it hurts them more out of their pocket right away. So I thought, okay, if it's going to hurt him paying the $2,500 up front, maybe he's going to be more willing to pay the higher commission at the end instead, the 3% instead of the 2%, and then more upfront, because it's going to hurt you to pay the $2,500 because you have to fork out that money.
Right.
Versus 3%, you don't have to fork out any money.
Yeah,
It's just part of the deal. You forget about it. You don't even see that money, because during the escrow process, you get what you get.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt you. So I tried to use those tactics of, okay, let's bring up the whole cost of deposit up front. So it pains him to go that route. So it hurts him more to go that route than the 3%. But he did go with the 2%. I tried.
Right.
But he went with that, and I'm like, okay.
Smart man.
Still, yeah. But got the airplane polished, got it listed. I spent definitely more than the $2,500. I spent more in payroll for getting the airplane polished, because it wasn't just me. It was also me and my worker. Got the airplane polished, got the airplane listed, paid the listing fees. Marketing.
Listings. Where did you list it? Did you put in controller?
Trade a plane, Facebook, Barnstormers. I think that was it.
Okay. Yeah.
So I got most of my leads from controller.
Yeah.
And trade a plane.
Yep.
Controller was pretty expensive, and I thought I would do the premium listing, because I'm like, okay, I want to be the best again. And that kind of, was that necessary? Yeah, because there were a lot of other 206s on the market, and I want to kind of just get this over with, and let's just get this sold and be at the top of the page.
I really like your mentality about it. Just trying to be the best, go with the best.
Yeah. I mean, okay, great. It costs this much. Okay, great. I'm going to incorporate that into the price of selling it. Or same thing with detailing. Like, oh, okay, you want this done? Okay, this is how much it's going to cost. Or for me, maybe the price of a product is this much, but it helps me solve this problem. Okay, great. I'm going to incorporate that into the price of my services
Mhm.
because that's just the reality. That's just what it costs. Or if, the cost of living goes up in my area, okay, well, that's going to reflect in my prices because that's just what it costs for me to service you in this area. So
Absolutely.
a lot of people are quick to complain about prices that maybe go up or something's too expensive when they don't see the other side of it as, well, this is how much value it's bringing me and this is the problem it's solving. Great. Okay, that's incorporated into the price of the service.
Mhm.
So that's and mentors have helped me think this way that were not even necessarily in the aviation industry, but other well-off individuals helped me think this way and led to another book called Profit First, if you've ever heard of it.
No, not that one.
A lot of people think business is income minus expenses is profit equals profit. But if you think it the other way, income minus profit is the expenses. That's how much expenses you have to work with, that you should be limiting yourself. If your business is eating more expensive, that means you are doing something wrong. That means your either expenses are too high or your income isn't high enough to use those expenses for your business.
Got it.
So it forces you, it pretty much throws your bank's accounts into 5 accounts instead of one big account. One account for profit, strictly. You don't use it for anything else except for paying yourself every quarter. Another bank account is for your income where all the checks come through and then they get distributed to the profit account, get distributed to a tax account in proportions accordingly. And then another operating expense account and then your owner pay account. So everything's already predetermined right away. And that's how I set up my broker. When I get paid with commissions, that's how I set it up. When a commission check comes through, I pay myself a certain percentage. I don't pay myself the whole amount. Everyone says, "Oh, I got 10,000."
No, it doesn't work like that. You gotta pay Uncle Sam.
Yeah, you gotta pay that. You gotta
older
pay the listing fees.
listing
You gotta
fees.
also set money aside for a future listing or
Yep.
for your business, for your insurance, for your registration, for upcoming business expenses that might be expected or unexpected, and taxes and everything. So there's a lot to it. So when somebody says, "Oh, you got paid $1,000 to detail a car," well, not really, because I only took in maybe 40% of that or 50% of that actual take home pay. So that helped me view those things differently and use those kind of ideas and tactics towards selling my services. And so one lead came through. There were a lot of leads actually initially. I actually initially underpriced this 206. My phone was exploding. And I should have done more due diligence on the aircraft research part.
Sure.
But the VREF was actually pretty close
Okay.
to it, surprisingly. On other airplanes, it's not as accurate. Depends.
It
But
depends.
if there's enough of those sales on those airplanes, if they're popular enough, VREF is pretty good.
Did you have you ever gotten a phone call from someone where they say, "Oh, well, you're selling it for this, but BREF says this number," and it's like way
Yeah.
lower?
Yeah.
Have you had those?
Yeah, I had that, and I usually back it up. Well, there's not enough data on VREF
Yeah.
to support, that, and because look at the market, look at what they're
Mhm.
actually going for.
Exactly.
So I put a price a little bit too low, and I realized maybe I should next time do call for price and get a feel for the market, and then put a listing price. So that's kind of the tactic I started using a little bit. I don't know how much I'll be using that in the future, but I kind of liked it where I set it for call for price. They call in, and I get a much better feel of how much people are willing to spend on this kind of airplane with this time of engine hours and stuff like that. And I upped up the price to higher to the dismay and upsetness of a couple individuals.
Sure.
Oh well, I'm doing it, and honestly, the seller was an agreement for me to sell it for the initial price, so he was okay with it. I could have been up and over done with this deal actually a while ago. I could have been probably have this airplane sold within 2 weeks at that price point, and he wouldn't have cared. But me wanting to get the best possible, even though the commission difference at 2%,
it's not
not enough to actually go the extra mile. It really is.
Right.
If you do the math, like, okay, I initially listed it for $545K, and then I ended up then listing it for $589. The difference between 45 to 90K was 50K. What is it? 2% of 50K is $1,000. All right, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, $1,000 isn't life changing a whole lot. So I mean, that's not even going to cover the listing fees of the pictures and the videos. So But I'm like, okay, well, I'm trying to be the best at what I do, so I'm going to do the best for my client. I'm going to up the increasing pricing of those is going to be more of a hassle. And then I started getting other leads come through, and one lead came through, it was a buyer's agent.
Okay.
So he was helping his friend buy this airplane. Okay, taking the next steps. They're really interested. I sent them the agreement, and because I've never done a transaction before, that's where the sense of helplessness started sinking in. Like, okay, I'm gonna go back to the course. All right, where am I on this checklist, or where am I on the flow chart? Process. Okay, I'm on this step, so I'm gonna go to this module and go through that. And okay, all right, so now I know the next steps here. So I'll send
So that relieves some of the,
huge relief. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
awesome, man.
I really, without that, honestly, I would constantly be having the sense of helplessness. What do I do now?
And it's crazy you say that, because when I started as an aircraft broker, I didn't have the Aircraft Broker Academy, or I didn't have, uh, I'm not going to mention the company that I was involved with, but it was useless.
Yeah.
I had no help or anything. I had to figure all this out myself.
And anybody can, but it's going to take longer.
It's going to take longer. And also, just to throw it out there, my first couple of transactions were without an escrow. So we're like meeting up in my office, signing the bill of sale and the aircraft registration. And the LLC statement, if it was an LLC, just all there. And I would send the envelope to the FAA.
Wow.
No good
Yeah.
when you have an escrow. I mean, there's certain scenarios where that could work out, or
I mean, it's just if you trust, but things can go south.
they can go. Yeah.
And sometimes, like, when you go through the actual escrow process, you sometimes think, did I really need it that time? Because it's so easy. It's like, okay, well, here's the money, here's the title signed away, done. Well, there's a lot more moving parts than you think, and escrow is necessary. And honestly, given that, it's pretty surprising escrow doesn't charge that much for a single engine piston.
No, it's like $500.
Yeah, it's for a $500,000 airplane. I think for us it was like $700, $800.
Yeah, sure.
Still, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing.
No.
And to have the peace of mind and protection, absolutely you have to. And through the course, it helped me cut the chase of what escrow company I should use in the first place, because there's actually a lot. If you go do a Google search, there's probably tens of piston escrow aircraft companies out there. And the one that you have in the course, I'm not going to reveal it because it's in the course, so you got to buy the course to go look in there and see which company is the best. There's two that you have listed in there.
Yeah.
One of them's got an amazing system that really is like a checklist. Checklist, it's as simple as it is. It really just makes things so much easier. It's wonderful. So got that way easier going through that, because actually initially I went through another escrow company. I didn't follow the course on that part for some reason. I don't know. I just found this other escrow company. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
So anyway. So we're going through the process of doing the next steps with this interested buyer. I send them the agreement, and then the seller's like, okay, well, we're going to make this non-refundable deposit towards this airplane because that's how it should be. But me being not done this before, I'm like, okay, sure. I'm kind of go a little bit more with the wind because I'm not as experienced. And he is, because he's gone through two transactions. He's gone through the transaction of the 206 and transaction of upgrading his airplane. So he actually already bought another airplane. He bought a TBM. So he's gone through that process. And both of cases for him
has been non-refundable. Sure.
And in his mind, that's the standard.
Right.
And that's how it should be. And if it was done for me, that means if they're buying an airplane for me, that's how it should be done for them too. And that's kind of what I had to work with. And well, he's got
what is your take on non-refundable deposits?
I see both sides of this. It's hard to say. I like the non-refundable is safer, but at the same time, if the buyer, in the case of buyer, is unable to perform for personal reasons, he's wasted everyone's time.
Mm-hmm.
He's gone through the whole process. He's wasted the broker time. He's wasted the seller's time. He's wasted a pilot time if involved. And in a case, maybe you could have a refundable deposit, but there's stipulations to go with it. You got to pay the pilot. You got to pay for the aircraft repositioning fee. Then you got to pay for maybe some broker fees too that were involved. So maybe if it's structured like that, makes a little more sense. But this is not a common occurrence, as you say. For me,
Yeah.
it was a common. That's
So how I look at it is, I usually do. It depends on the aircraft, depends on the client. There's a lot of variables, right? But how I look at it is, if everything is going to happen in house, like meaning at the
hmm
airport where the aircraft is located, I can do a non-refundable deposit.
yeah.
Now, if we're going to start inconveniencing my client to
hmm
reposition the airplane to somewhere else to get a
hmm
pre-purchase inspection done, or we have to hire people to fly that airplane over there, then at that point it's a non-refundable,
Yeah, I like
and
that.
it's non-negotiable. It's either, if you want to do it
Your game,
refundable,
yeah,
we have to do it in our turf. If you want to do it somewhere else, or we
th-
have to do
that's a lot
some,
better
yeah,
structured.
that's
Yeah,
how I look at
yeah.
it.
If you want to play your game, okay, well, it's going to come with our rules to play your game. But if you want to, play with our game, of in house, then we can play a little bit with your rules.
Exactly.
So refundable deposit,
and
yeah.
and at the end of the day, is like talking about negotiations. It's not just the price. You're not
hmm
just negotiating the price.
No,
You're also negotiating the terms and
absolutely.
how the transaction is going to take place.
Yeah, actually, more negotiation took place in the terms than the price.
Look at that.
Actually, on the second buyer, sorry. So, but this first guy, we negotiated a little bit on the price. So yeah, actually, negotiations happened a little bit on the price. So had it listed for 589, they negotiated to 570, and that was the agreement. And we started the pre-buy process as well, because they flew in to go look at the airplane. They've already signed the non-refundable agreement before
Mhm.
looking at the airplane, but I've
The aircraft purchase agreement with a
yep,
non-refundable
with the
clause.
non-refundable
Okay.
clause. Yep. And it's a good price at 570 for that airplane. They came in and they were happy with it, and did a test flight from where it's based to the pre-buy facility. They did mention when they saw it in person that the right wingtip had touch-up paint done, and it was for because paint was flaking off the leading edge, and it was the leading edge of an STC part, so it wasn't even the actual airplane. It was the extended wingtip for the gas tanks and the increased gross weight takeoff for the 206.
Okay.
So it had a patch of paint, that was done. Sure, in their defense, it wasn't the best paint repair, but it was strictly touch up. And they did mention it, but they said, if anything, consider it a done deal unless something major comes up. Um, Otherwise,
Okay.
so okay. They did, the wingtip bothered them a little bit, but everything's negotiable. If it comes to it, we can just replace it and get a new one. It is an aftermarket part anyway. So pre-buy starts, which I also help navigate the client to finding a pre-buy, because a lot of facilities are a month out.
Yeah.
All the Textron service centers are a month out. So
Yeah.
you as a broker have to help clients, with the whole process, making them easier, because if you don't get the pre-buy started, they're not going to be buying the airplane.
Exactly.
And if you have prior relationships,
And that's
with
why they're
those
paying
shops,
you.
yeah, if you have prior relationships with those shops, even better. At least they can maybe get you in a little sooner,
Hmm.
or yeah, they'll open up availability to you, or they know you and they'll be more likely to maybe take you in, or they'll know you more, or they'll know the airplane more, so they'll know what to look for maybe for the pre-buy. And so about halfway into this pre-buy, the mechanic gets a call from the buyer saying to cease and desist on this pre-buy, and that's it. We'll pay for everything we've done, all the work you've done up to this point, but to cease and desist. And then the mechanic later calls me. He's like, "Yeah, so I got this phone call. So I don't know if you know about it, but that's what I've been ordered to do." I thought, "Oh, great." And I call his agent. I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, it seems like there's personal stuff going on with the buyer. He can't buy it, but he then kind of steered the conversation that, well, the wingtip's all damaged and there's damage history on this airplane and all this stuff." And I'm like, "Well, no, there's no damage history. The logbooks don't support that." And then, in fact, during the pre-buy, they also requested the ENP to do a borescope of the wingtip inside, because it's fiberglass for those tips.
Sure.
No damage, no cracking on the inside, and on the outside, there's also no cracking. So there's no damage whatsoever. It's literally just touch-up paint. I mean, if you consider that damage, which I guess by definition, I guess it is, but then so does every single airplane in the world have damage.
Right.
A brand new paint job will have flaking paint.
And did you check the NTSB, if there's anything?
Nothing. Yeah,
Okay.
there's clean history. Logbooks are clean. There's no damage history, and their worst fears like, oh, it hit it bumped into a hangar door or tree.
Okay.
That none of that supports that. And I mean, you can actually see the indentations of the paint flakes, what they filled over. You could literally just see the paint flaking on that part.
Mm.
That's it. Every airplane has flaking paint. A brand new airplane has paint that's flaking. A brand new paint job has paint that's going to be flaking. I've seen it because I work on airplanes. I wash them. Every time I wash an airplane, there's more paint coming off. That's just the nature. So they kind of blame it on this wingtip issue, and I'm kind of pulling my hair, starting to, because they're backing out of this deal. Like, oh, I have to restart this whole process again and sell it. And then I tell the agent, I say, well, okay, fine, you guys want to back out. Okay, but just understand, it is a non-refundable deposit. And then that's when it really starts going down the hill of headaches and hair pulling and, what do I do now? The course only went so far.
Yeah.
They're talk about this part of the sale flow process.
Well, and this is the crazy part. I mean, Vlad actually called me in this situation. And the course essentially is like my years of experience, like selling airplanes. That's essentially what I teach you. I have never been involved on what Vlad is about to tell us.
So,
and it is crazy because this is his first deal.
Yeah.
But Vlad, tell us what happened.
The agent's like, oh, yeah, my buyer's not going to be happy that it's non-refundable. I said, well,
the contract says it.
The contract says it, and we've already put so much time towards this. It's a good airplane. There's no reason you guys should be backing out. And if that wingtip is really such a problem for you, let's just get a new one. We'll throw that in, as part of the deal. We'll get you new wingtip. So it's just one.
Yeah, and that's not a big deal either.
It's an aftermarket part on top of that. So he's like, well, I'll give it a try. I'm like, okay, maybe we could salvage the deal. So the agent actually does his part a little bit too to help close the deal, because truly this airplane is really solid. It's a wonderful price point. It's ready to go. It still has plenty of time remaining on the engine. It only had 500-600 since overhaul. I mean, it's ready to go. It had a very expensive thorough annual that was just done before, and so like it really doesn't need anything. It has zero squawks. It's ready to go.
Wow.
There's no reason why you shouldn't buy this airplane. And the agent agrees. Like the agent is like, yeah, I agree. This airplane is solid. There's no reason for us to really back out, but it's just really up to the buyer and his emotions. Everything's emotional. It sounded also maybe like his personal family was involved and didn't like it. So if you're ever buying something, make sure everyone's on the same page about it when there's other people's finances involved too. So he wouldn't budge. He didn't want to buy it, and he wanted his refundable deposit back. And then I go back to the seller who I've been selling it for. He's like, well, here's the dilemma. He wants to back out, and he wants his money back. And I already know the seller. He's going to be kind of not strict, but like he signed a contract, and then why did we sign it if he's not going to follow through with it? So no, he's not getting his money back. Those were literally his words. He's not getting his money back. And I'm in the middle of this. He doesn't want to give away the money. It's an escrow, the deposit, and then he wants his money back, the buyer. What am I supposed to do? So I start calling people. I start calling you, brokers. Okay, I'm going to try to get to people that maybe have gone through this before, try to learn from other people's experience to maybe walk me through this. So I called you, and you're like, well, at the end of it, you should try to persuade your seller to just refund the deposit, because that's pretty standard to have refundable deposits. And I'm like, okay, I'll try. I mean, I gave him seller a call. He's like, well, here's what I was suggesting. He's like, no, he signed a contract. Why did he sign it then if we're just going to let it go like that? And at the meantime, I have other people listed ready to buy this airplane. And I also told him, hey, look, I've got other people ready to buy. He's like, at this point, it's personal. Again, it's emotional, part of ego, and that's what you have to work with. Doing sales is always part of working with people's egos and emotions and everything that goes with it. It's not about the numbers. It's not about what's written on the paper. Mm-hmm. It's all about emotion and ego. And you have, as a broker for anything, you have to learn how to work those.
And manage people, essentially, yeah.
It's people management.
It's people management.
It's working with people. And you have to learn that. Honestly, that's probably the biggest thing you have to learn to do is managing people and working with people, communicating with people. I'm still working on it. I'm not that great at it, but I'm trying.
And you will get there, and I'm still working on it too. I mean, I'm in the middle of the deal, and we have not similar to this scenario, but where people's emotions are getting involved.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's, you have to manage it, and you have to talk, and you have to be their counselor, and you know
Yes. You have to be their counselor. Sometimes that's what I feel like. I have to be a counselor. So maybe instead of getting a degree in business, get a degree in psychology. Seriously. Because if you could persuade people, you've got way more influence than, well, I know the numbers. It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's the emotions.
Absolutely. Well said, man. Well said.
So, we're still at a stalemate on this. 206, he doesn't want to budge, and the buyer doesn't want to budge. Seller doesn't want, nobody wants to. And I don't know what to do. So I also thought of another broker that came to my mind that was local to my area. His name is Jeffrey Ludstick. He's, in fact, also a lawyer. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect. He's got his lawyer expertise. He's a broker. He's a pilot. Maybe he's got the inside knowledge towards this dilemma that I have.
Is that Tomahawk?
Yes, it is Tomahawk Aero Services, I believe. Yeah, so Tomahawk something after that. And now he's based in Nevada. So he's moved from Washington. But I call him up, and he's pretty sure he's heard of me, but I've heard of him before. And call him up, I tell him my situation. I told him right away, I'm happy to pay for your time because I just need to get out of this situation. Like, I'm pulling my hair out. I'm considering quitting this altogether. I don't know what to do. So he donates a lot of his time towards me, which was really wonderful by him. And he tells me one thing. Well, he asks a couple questions. What kind of client is this? I said, well, it's a client, he's got, his own culture that goes with how he does things. So not necessarily American, but just an outsider who's coming to this country who has his own culture. And that's just how it is. And that's okay. And he tells me, here's what you got to tell him. In this situation, you got to save face. I don't know what that meant, save face. But what that means is you're saving yourself from embarrassment. You're saving yourself from future embarrassment by dragging this out further.
Right.
So you got to save face, return the money, and carry along. And I said, well, yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do. And on top of that, I even have another buyer ready to go for even a higher price than this current guy we're stuck with. So he's like, then yeah, what the heck are you doing? Like get him signed on and move on, Okay, well, I'll try. So I call the seller and I tell him, look, I've consulted with multiple brokers. They've all said the same thing. You got to return the deposit. It's just not worth the hassle at this point.
No, absolutely not. And you also did get a call from the lawyers, from the buyer.
From the buyer's lawyers.
Can you guys imagine, like, first transaction, getting a phone call from a lawyer?
Yeah, saying you have misrepresented and fraudulently listed this
Which
airplane.
is BS, because I talked to Vlad and we both knew that was not the case.
Like, are they wrong? Yes and no. Like, yeah, the airplane's sort of damaged, but it's not damage history. There's no major damage. So it's like, I get what they're trying to do, but it's for them, it's a scapegoat. For them, it's a scapegoat out of this deal. It's not that's not the reason they're getting out. And so
he was just trying to intimidate you, essentially.
Yeah. So then when I get the phone call from the lawyer, then I'm like, that's when I'm really pulling my hair. Like, what did I get myself into? Why am I doing this? I don't want to do this anymore. If this is what it means being an aircraft broker, I don't want no part of this. But I'm thinking at the same time, if I'm not willing to go through this, then who am I to say that I'm a broker to people? Who am I to help people go through this whole transaction? Because that's the whole reason why they got me here.
That's the right
whole
attitude.
Reason why he's paying me to do this is to deal with this headache. Now, granted, some of the headache was induced by both parties.
Yeah.
But still, I kind of got him in this mess because this is the buyer. I brought him, and I think it's my responsibility to get him out. As easy as it is to just, oh no, I'm done. I'm out of here. I don't want to do anything with this. But similarly, at the same time, this is my business name on the line. This is it. When you're a business owner, everything falls back on you. Taxes, payroll, legal responsibilities, paying everybody else, paying everything, being responsible for the quality of work. Everything falls back on you as a business owner. You're responsible for everything at play. And at the end of it all, then you can pay yourself.
Absolutely.
So yeah, got a call with the lawyer to return the money immediately. And then I was really stuck. And then I called Jeffrey at Tomahawk and like, here's my dilemma. And he tells me, yeah, you gotta tell your client to save face. So I call him, call the seller. I say, I've consulted with multiple brokers. They have all said you got to return the deposit. That's just pretty standard terms in the single piston world. And you got to save face from this situation. And immediately he was like, okay. So it was using those two words, save face. And his culture using that kind of language immediately is like, okay, this is real. We got to change our course here and do things differently.
What ethnicity?
Chinese, Asian, yeah, Chinese.
Okay.
So for them, you're saving yourself from the embarrassment, and that's super important. Yeah.
Wow.
And other friends of mine, in the real estate, I also like asked him, like, have you guys had, challenges in selling? He's like, yeah, people with a heavy culture are typically a little bit harder to work with sometimes, can be. And he's like, wow, I feel bad for you. Just like you were also saying, like, gee, like for your first aircraft deal, and even the real estate friends of mine also are saying the same thing. Gee, yeah, I know what that's like. It's, geez, dude.
But it's like what I told you over the phone, man. The only thing this is gonna do is it's gonna make you stronger.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been able to go through this.
Yes.
I'm not sure. I would like to believe I would, but my first deal, like my very first one, if this happened, I don't know if I would have.
I did have the thoughts of just throwing the towel. I mean, the thoughts came to my mind.
Vlad, we are running a little bit tight on time here. So we'll just wrap it up. But essentially, just kind of walk me through where you are right now in your journey as an aircraft broker, and maybe how Aircraft Broker Academy helped you get to where you are currently.
Yeah. So after I got the new buyer for the 206, the process flow was much easier because, one, we have a higher price point for this airplane now. And now I can walk through this whole thing, and then the current buyer can use the previous pre-buy or how far they got.
Yeah.
And I walked through the whole sales flow to get this airplane sold, work with the better escrow company on this round. And towards the end of it all, I coordinated the meetup location because it was out of state for an out of state flyaway tax purposes. Coordinated that, so it had to happen that day, and everything was put together with the help of the course. And the last little bit, the escrow lady calls and says, "Well, the wire's money has been held up. The wire money did not go through." And the guy shows up to the airport, meeting this guy, and the money's not gone through. And I'm like, what's going on? Great. Now what? Now what? How else can this go any harder? And the agent was saying, well, the bank has flagged this money for further review or some kind of other language terms that they
never
used.
had that one either.
Right? Go figure, right? So and we're ticking, we have 1.5 hours left to finish this deal before the banks close on the East Coast because we're on the West Coast. We're 3 hours behind.
Right.
And so the agent's like, yeah, I've never had this happen before. I'm like, of course it happens to me though. Of course, So she's frantically trying to work with the bank, and we wait an hour, and she finally says, whew, the escrow agent lady says, whew, I've never had that happen before, and I've never been on this much of an edge, trying to close this deal. I've never been this anxious trying to make this deal happen. And it finally went through. The bank cleared it, went through, and had half hour to spare, and they went along their ways. And then instantly you get the money wired to your account.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's it.
That's it.
And the course got paid for itself after this one deal. And that's all it takes. If you do one deal, the course pays for itself. Any kind of CPA, counselor, coach, if they are at least paying for themselves, they've done their job. If the tax accountant is paying for the money reduced in tax bills, he's paid for himself.
But I want to add something else to that. And it's the reason why you were able to get that sale is because you were committed.
You got to be committed.
You have to be committed. I can sit there, teach you everything I know about aircraft sales, but at the end of the day, you're the one that needs to take action. And his story shows you that it's not always easy.
No.
His, I feel like it's an extreme thing.
But I made it through. And honestly,
but you made it through.
honestly, I look back at it and I don't regret any of it. And I'm glad it happened how it happened
Yeah.
because now I'm experienced.
You're gonna be a rock star of a broker
Now
because,
I've
like,
lived through
what
this.
what else is gonna happen?
Yeah, exactly. Nothing
What-
else. Yeah, it can't get much worse.
It can't get much worse.
Maybe a little bit, but I mean, I've already lived through it.
As long as, yeah, I mean, the worst thing I can think about is like something with the money, but escrow, use escrow.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of, you wash your hands with with that with the money side of things, because now you have a third party involved in the transaction,
Yeah,
collecting the
exactly.
money and stuff like that.
And now for the next transaction, it makes it so much easier. And now, actually, the 182 that I talked about out of that same flight school also got off the schedule. And I immediately know what's the story. I call him up, same thing as the 206, and he's in the same situation. So I helped navigate him through it. While I didn't manage the airplane for him, I did help navigate through it. And now he's in a position to sell it, and I'm helping him with that process. So that's where I'm at now. That's where I am at now. Is now I've got everything a lot more streamlined. I'm able to sell this airplane at a higher commission because I'm more experienced. And right before we started this podcast, the purchase agreement has been signed for this second airplane for sale. So that's already pending.
That's incredible, Vlad. I mean, I'm so happy, dude, for you.
No, it's a lot. Thanks to you and your structure of the course and the commission structure. I already know what buttons to press, where, and to make this process go by smoothly.
And before we let you guys go, I do want to mention, and this is something that we talked about before we started here the podcast, but I thought it was very interesting. I mean, the way that he got his two first clients, it actually, I don't even teach that in the course. This is something that he decided to do on his own. The 206 and the 182, both part of a flight school. They get out of the schedule, so there's a problem.
Mhm.
There's a reason why those two airplanes are being pulled out of the schedule. He was able to recognize that problem and decided to call to offer a solution.
Mhm.
And that's essentially what I teach in the course. You know, like different ways of trying to find clients is identify what the problem is, offer the solution. A lot of times, businessmen, people that can afford airplanes that are $500,000, $1 million, $10 million, don't have the time to deal with the stuff that we have to deal with as brokers. And they are willing to pay you a commission for it. That is the solution that you're offering. That's what you're getting paid for.
Another good way of saying it is you only get paid for the size of the problem you're solving.
Boom. That's
You
it.
know, like that's how I viewed life when I've started business, because I can only charge for the size of the problem I'm solving. I'm solving the problem of cleaning a car. That's only worth X amount for somebody. Now, if I'm cleaning maybe a more expensive car, okay, it's going to be worth more because there's more precautions taken. So it's going to be worth more. And another thing I would say that I've taken away from a saying is you never make money. Nobody makes money. You take money. You took money from someone else who gave it to you because they believe that they're getting better value by giving this money to you in exchange for something else. You didn't make the money. You took it.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, Vlad.
All
Well,
right.
it was very nice to meet you here in person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And guys, stay tuned. I'll have more guests, whether that is students or professionals in the industry. So stay tuned for the next podcast. Take care.
All right.
Dude, that was good, man.
That was a lot longer, I guess. 150?